is Glenn Monday when he met with the media trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. So here we go. Here's Glenn Monday.
Especially when you go into that fourth quarter. I mean, you saw our guys running to the ball. You saw our guys making plays.
No doubt.
Even when it got to a point where all they were trying to do was run the ball, our guys didn't back down from that at all. And I would say that most of the time when that happens, I mean, that's when you have an effort issue. You saw guys, they were running on and off the field the whole time. Man, it was nothing about them that they were throwing up the white flag and they were quitting.
No.
So to me, that's the one thing I really want to look at and see how that was. Again, schematically, were there some things challenged? Absolutely. But again, our guys did not quit. I mean, they were running to the ball. They were trying to defend the pass. They were doing all those things they need to do to try to win that game. And that was evident when you go back and just watch the game. And again, watching it twice, that really showed up.
Yeah, he watched it twice. He actually sat back there and invested 6 hours of his life to go out there and watch that game again. I mean, after the most Jet fans basically couldn't get through the game for the first time. I mean, so Aaron Glenn is sitting back there watching it as the Jet head coach, and all of a sudden, the effort Sunday was bad, but all of a sudden now, in a game that ended 42-10, Aaron Glenn was excited about the fact that his team was running off the field. Or the fact that when the Patriots obviously called off the dogs and put up the white flag and basically said we had done enough, and they did, where you had Drake May on the sideline wearing the cape, dealing with the cold, root on his teammates as you had the backup quarterback in there for, and Downs in there for the New England Patriots. Aaron Glenn was excited about the fact that his team was going out there continuing to contest as the Patriots were obviously trying to use the clock. The clock was their friend at that point in time, looking to get through the game unscathed and marched on to week 18. So that's the way you're judging it. It does come a point in time. Like, just own it. Like on Sunday, if you're Aaron Glenn and you want to go out there and you want to contest or you want to go out there and criticize your team's effort and you are the head coach of the Jets, you have every right to. The team's effort was pathetic. And then to try to walk it back on Monday makes the situation even that much worse. Like there needed to be some sort of media consultant down in Florham Park. You call somebody up. Maybe, Woody Johnson's got somebody on speed dial. There's got to be somebody in the building that says, well, you know what? Just stand up to it. Own it. You said it. Majority of this team is probably not going to be here. You're in a pure rebuild. The foundation guys, as Glenn talked about on Sunday, the foundation pieces, those that are going to be here long-term, have bought into the program that Aaron Glenn and Bougie are going out there and try and profess. Just own it. Don't walk it back, because you know what you do when you walk it back? It makes you, the head coach, who wants to come from a position of strength, who wants to tell you basically it's his way or the highway. I'm going to coach you hard. Don't be too sensitive. I'm trying to get the best out of you. This Bill Parcells, Al Groh kind of old school mentality. That's what Glenn wants to profess. So if you're going to come from that position of strength, don't show weakness on Monday by trying to walk it back. Now, why did he do it? We're all smart. Let's put the thinking caps on. Why do you think Aaron Glenn did it? Aaron Glenn did it because he has great fear of losing the entire team. Now, you might say, well, the team's gone already. Look at their performance on Sunday, and you might be right. But that is why Glenn did it. And it becomes more and more difficult by the day. It really does. And I like Glenn. Was out there, the introductory presser, root for him, easy guy. Remember him as a player. Old enough to remember Aaron Glenn as a player. So I root for Aaron Glenn to go out there and be successful. He can't get out of his own way. But somebody, just like somebody for the Yankees needed to pull the link for that Zoom call for Hal a couple weeks ago, somebody needed to get Aaron Glenn in a room and have a conversation with him and said, listen, you said what you did on Sunday. You were frustrated. You were embarrassed. It was like Foxborough South out at MetLife Stadium. They were chanting MVP, MVP as May is running off the field. You want to go out there. Now, you criticize your team's effort. You said it was the first time all season long, even though you got routed by the Saints, even though you got routed by the Jags, even though you got routed by Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. You had the worst month in the history of the National Football League from a point disparity perspective. You want to go out there and question your team effort? You have every right to. Don't walk it back. That's what I don't understand. Like, the team's not get it, just handle it. You want to do that? Go out there and do it. I have no issue. I really don't. Now, does it fall on the staff? Of course. He even tried to walk back. I mean, on Sunday, Aaron Glenn talked about the fact of how brilliant, he didn't use the word brilliant, paraphrasing here. He really thought his offensive and defensive game plans were rock solid. And then on Monday, he's telling you basically they confused the team. Like the season can't end soon enough for Aaron Glenn. The confidence level in the Jet head coach goes by the wayside by the day. And I'm a guy that's rooting for him. Now, I did say at the start of the season, in the offseason, when they were telling you that, and listen, Glenn, handpicked guy was Justin Fields. That's stupid. I mean, that is a bad decision. In a quarterback-driven league, all of a sudden, now you have the arrogance or the cockiness that you were all of a sudden going to turn around Justin Fields and make him a viable candidate or make him a viable quarterback in the National Football League. Listen, this ain't college. This is the National Football League. That ain't happening. But it becomes more and more difficult. It really does. And I'm not one it's the holiday season. Not one, that's going to go out there and tell you that Aaron Glenn, that definitively, that Aaron Glenn needs to get. But you understand. You understand the Jet fan that shows up at MetLife and puts a bag over their head. Because at the end of the game, they can't watch the embarrassment anymore. You understand the Jet fan that doesn't show up anymore. You understand the Jet fan that has been beaten down by this organization. The ineptitude of Woody, the Bobs, his sons, rolling around Florham Park, flying in on their helicopter. You understand the losing. The team has not been to the playoffs since 2010. You understand all of it. And then you have a head coach that you thought was going to be, 2 feet on the ground, going to be the grown-up in the building. And Aaron Glenn has not shown you the epitome of really any sort of confidence level that he is going to be a great head coach. The team has not improved. Now, people might say, well, look at the turnover on the roster. They got rid of Sauce Gardner. They got rid of Quentin Williams. They, look at the amount of guys that were on the roster today as compared to the start of the season. Look at the start of the season. They played competitive games, against quality opponents. But here's the point. You want to go out there and start to get better as the season goes along. That's the goal for any team that enters a situation, first-year head coach, even though the Jets were not in a pure rebuild, you want to get better. You want to evolve. You want to build towards something in 2026. You don't want to be a case of, we're not going anywhere. We're really bad, so we're going to tear it down. We're going to roll guys out there. Then we're going to fire a defensive coordinator or throw him to the Wolves and Steve Wilkes, who was handpicked by Aaron Glenn. We're finally going to throw our hands up in the air and realize what everybody else realized across the National Football League, that Justin Fields can't play, even though we gave him a 2-year contract, and that was a guy that was handpicked. We're going to have Jet fans clamoring for the fact that they wanted Aaron Rodgers back, even though Rodgers, they flew him across the country to tell him basically, thanks, but no thanks, we're moving on. And that wasn't just a Glenn decision. Woody couldn't stand him at the end, and Rodgers couldn't stand Woody Johnson. But still, Glenn gets the job because Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to be a part of it. But the answer and the solution was a guy that can't play. Athletically gifted, cannot play. And then you get this. And you get the end of the season where the team has showed you little to no pride. Where you see other teams, the Saints, the Cleveland Browns, even though Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, is probably a dead man walking. And he's probably going to be out as a job come, in 5-6 days, Black Monday. He's got to be out of a job. But the Browns push it back a little bit. You've seen other teams. How about the Tennessee Titans, who fired Callahan months ago? McCoy steps in. Even the Tennessee Titans have shown you a little bit of life. They went out there and beat the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs gave you little to no effort after losing Patrick Mahomes with the torn ACL and LCL. But let me ask you this. Do you think the Jets right now, taking on the Chiefs with a third-string quarterback, do you think the Jets would win? Be honest. Do you think the Jets would actually win that game? Do you think they'd put together an offensive and defensive game plan for a team that's got nothing to play for? You got Kelsey thinking about getting married to Taylor Swift. You have Mahomes, torn ACL, LCL. He's already had surgery. You have an organization that's trying to figure out exactly what they do next year. Probably not going to have Mahomes week 1. Do you think the Jets actually beat the Chiefs? Like, what team right now do you think the Jets, if I lined you up, based on the way that this team is playing right now, what team in the National Football League do you think the Jets would beat? The Raiders? Maybe. And the Raiders against the Giants, bench their top 3 players. Chin, the Bowers, and Crosby, who's still going out there jumping on a trampoline. Let me ask you another question. What coaching staff, listen, I was ultra critical of Saleh at the end of the, toward the tail end. That coaching staff was inept. It really was. Saleh now, as a defensive coordinator, defensive mind, putting together a game plan. Saleh would run laps around Wilkes and Glenn. He really would, as he was running up and down the stairs. I mean, Saleh as a defensive coordinator is very, very good. As a head coach, trying to handle everything that incorporates that, not particularly good. Now, what coaching staff across the National Football League? Now, we've got some interim guys in there. You know, you've got Kafka and the Giants. You've got some interim guys stepping in. Carroll inept with his sons out there on that Raiders coaching staff. What coaching staff right now do you think the Jets, if I lined up head coaches across the National Football League and coaching staffs, which staff do you think the Jets have in terms of giving you a desirable or discernible edge against other coaching staffs in the National Football League? Not many. Be honest. Not many. And that's where, Glenn, you can have, and I've said it all along, you could have this Bill Parcells type of mantra and personality. The results have got to follow. And we've seen teams that are not necessarily particularly talented, but they go out there and they lean in to what is being asked. And they give you a representable performance. I didn't expect the Jets on Sunday to win against the New England Patriots as a 13.5-point dog. But I also didn't expect the head coach to go out there, say what he did post-game, and then try and walk it back on Monday either. And that is where Aaron Glenn is his own worst enemy. That's where somebody's got to pull him aside. And listen, I don't know where he stands. In all likelihood, I said on Monday that Aaron Glenn is going to be back as the Jets head coach. I really do. And because you got to give him a little bit more time. But the confidence level is not there. The Jet fan that believes in Aaron Glenn right now, that they have found the right answer, that they have found the solution, they have found the guy that's going to help them lead them out of the darkness and into the light. That confidence level is probably at 2%, if we're being honest. There's probably 2% of the Jet fan base that looks at Aaron Glenn and says, you know what, we made the right hire. The majority of the Jet fans that still invest their time, listen to this radio station, listening on Sundays, watch it on Sundays, everything that they do, whatever it might be, majority of them have looked at it and said, you know what, it's not good enough. And are pleading with the owner, Woody Johnson, to, you made a mistake. We understand where you're going, but it is not good enough. Now, is Glenn going to be given more time? He will. Does he need, and I firmly believe that he will. I don't think Woody Johnson's going to go out there and get rid of a former player, a guy that, and the Jets obviously wanted Vrabel more than anything else, but Vrabel was never coming to the Jets when the Patriots made their, when they made their head coaching position available. But I think we've reached a point here with Glenn is enough with the words. It's got to be actions. You can't tell me things are improving. I got to see it. You can't tell me that guys are buying into it when I get that kind of performance I did on Sunday. You can't go out there, question the team's effort if you're the head coach. If you're in a position of power, a position of leadership, trying to hold guys accountable and then walk it back on Monday. Because you know what that shows me? Lack of leadership. That shows me a guy that's a little scared. That shows me a guy that's a little bit concerned, a little bit worried about where his stance is as a head coach within that building and for that organization. And he should be concerned. Because as a head coach, you are handed the reins to obviously change the direction of the organization. You are handed the reins to go out there and change the culture within the building, understanding that winning matters. And you can call me to this radio station this morning and tell me, well, Mark, they're tanking. I mean, this is it. Listen, I've seen teams tank. The Raiders, yes, they are tanking. Give me a little bit of pushback. Show a little bit of pride. Don't get mocked out by a team and an organization that loves to make you look like a joke. That's the point. Be prideful to put that uniform on. Wear the green and white each and every week. Understand what it means to put that uniform on each and every week. Understand that you have to lay it on the line. And then on Monday, let's hear it again. Here is Glenn on Monday, walking back the comments he made on Sunday about his team's effort. Listen carefully.
Especially when you go into that fourth quarter. I mean, you saw our guys running to the ball. You saw our guys making plays. Even when it got to a point where all they were trying to do was run the ball, our guys didn't back down from that at all. And I would say that most of the time when that happens, that's when you have an effort issue. You saw our guys, they were running on and off the field the whole time. Man, it was nothing about them that they were throwing up the white flag and they were quitting. So to me, that's the one thing I really want to look at and see how that was. Again, schematically, were there some things challenged? Absolutely. But, again, our guys did not quit. I mean, they were running to the ball.
Oh, boy.
They were trying to defend the pass. They were doing all those things they need to do to try to win that game. And that was evident when you go back and just watch the game. And,
really?
And again, watching it twice.
Yeah,
that
not
really
once,
showed
twice.
Up.
Not one. He wants to make sure. He sat back and relaxed and watched that game not once, twice, and make it 3 times. So he not only was on the sideline watching the game, and then afterward, he sat back and watched the all 22. And he's judging this team's effort when the Patriots basically said when the Patriots jumped out in this game 42-3. And that's a head coach in the NFL. Think about that. They ran to the sideline. Fantastic. They tried to tackle the ball carrier. Great. Maybe schematically we confused them a little bit. Okay. I want to say, well, he put all the blame on the coaching staff. Rightfully so. And the players deserve a ton of blame too. And when there is a fracturing between the two, that's when people lose jobs.